Welcome to this meeting of the Waverley Local Planning Panel of the 26th of February 2025. My name is David Ryan and I'm the chair appointed by the Minister of this panel. With me today in today's panel are Elizabeth Kincaid and Sharon Beale, who are the expert panel members, and Sam Marshall, who is a local representative on the panel. Before we commence, the panel respectfully acknowledges our Indigenous heritage and recognises the ongoing Aboriginal traditional custodianship of the land which forms this local government area. There are no apologies. Prior to the meeting, all panel members completed the declaration of interest form for items on the meeting agenda. No interests were declared, but I will call upon each panel member to make any declarations of interest. Elizabeth?
Yeah, I have no interest to declare.
Sharon?
No interest for me either.
Sam? I have no interest. And I also have no interest to declare. In relation to proceedings today, we'll commence with the public hearing component of the meeting. I will introduce each item in the order listed in the meeting agenda, and will then call each person who is registered to speak on that item. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to make their presentation, which will be identified at the end of that 3 minutes by a sound, so please listen out for that. I do have discretion to provide a short extension if I consider appropriate. The applicant will be provided an opportunity to address the panel and respond to matters raised by objectors. Panel members may ask questions of any speaker. After all items are completed, I will then close the public part of the meeting and the panel will deliberate on all of the items. The minutes of the meeting will then be made publicly available on Council's website within a few days of the meeting. So I will go to the meetings in order, but I do announce that item 1 listed on the agenda, which is 33 Hardy Street, North Bondi. The panel just prior to the meeting was informed that that application has been withdrawn. So there is the application, it no longer is alive, and the panel has no role in its to determine that application anymore. So I did have some registered speakers on that item, but given the withdrawal of the application, there is I won't be calling upon those people to speak. But you are welcome if you are online to listen to the meeting on other items. So our first item now, item 2, 6 Abakir Street, Dover Heights, DA 510-2024, alterations and additions to a dwelling, including minor rear extension, new rear patio, modification to addition of new in area. I have no one registered to speak against the item. I do have a representative of the applicant registered, Anna Antonades. Antonades, do you wish to present to the panel or simply here to answer questions? You're welcome to speak, but just remind you of the 3 minutes.
I'd like to speak to the panel, please.
Yes, certainly. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm Anna Antonides. I'm from Anna Antonides Architecture, and I represent the client for this application. I would like to just please chat to the panel regarding the recommendations on the proposed conditions of consent, in particular items or modifications 2A and 2C. So the 2C requests that the rear patio roof be lowered to 2.4 meters above the floor level. In regards to this particular request, the existing rear-facing windows are 2.4 meters high. So what would happen if we lowered the roof down to 2.4 is that the structure would actually impose or impede the windows that are there. So what we are asking, if the panel would please consider that we lower the roof over the barbecue area, which is closest to the southern neighbour, to the required 2.4 metres, thus reducing the bulk and the minimal overshadowing that the structure has, that the bulk and structure actually imposes. And then hopefully that would then effectively address the issues that the council has with the structure. The other condition that I would like to chat about is the modification 2A, which is the increasing of the rear setback. Again, the resulting space of that additional 1 metre that the setback would result in would ultimately result in a almost 3 by 3.2 metre free patio space for my client, which is quite restricting. By lowering the barbecue roof, which is the sort of the previous proposal, again, we would reduce the overshadowing, reduce the impact and bulk of the proposal. So we would very much like to maintain the rear setback as per our original proposal, to allow for the continued amenity for my client. The other condition 2B, which was to lower the cabana at the pool, we're okay to comply with that. That's fine. Yeah, I think that's it for me.
Thanks, Vera. Any, yes.
Can I ask one question? So you're saying the window to where the pergola comes off is 2.4, and you're
Yeah, so the rear, the existing,
you're saying Windows 2.4, that's the head, and are you saying that you'd like the bottom of the pergola to be at the same level?
Yes, please.
Yeah, go back.
So if we were, the condition has requested that the top of the pergola structure be at 2.4.
Yeah, I get you. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
No, I
No.
don't have any.
Thank you, Anthony.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is item 3, PA 261 2023 B, 12 Ashley Street, Tamarina. I have a number of registered people who speak against the item. John McFadden, State Planning Services, and Tali Maryland, Mark Riley. If you all wish to speak, and if so, if whoever wishes to lead could lead and introduce the fellow speakers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We'd like to indicate that we do not support the recommendation of the Council Officer's report. We consider that the application should be refused. The original application included a condition A, and that required the pool to be set back 4 metres and a maximum length of 16.5 metres. We ask that the panel retain that condition. We do not agree with the deletion of that condition. There's insufficient area within a 2.25 metre setback between the pool and Ashley Street for sufficient landscaping. You would be aware, of course, of section 4.553 of the EPNA Act in the need for any consent authority to take into consideration the reasons given by the consent authority for the grant of the consent that is sought to be modified. In this case, the reasons for the condition included 2 components, those being the visual impact from Ashley Street. You would have noted from the site inspection this morning, when viewing the proposal from up the street as opposed to down the street where the applicant has shown the photo montages, the impact is quite significant. What the panel has been asked to consider here is a 200mm reduction in the height of the coping, yet the pool is 1.75 metres closer to the street. We say that is unacceptable. The second component for the reason for the condition is to respect the topography so that the water line is not above the fence line. Obviously, that's tied into privacy as well. We'd like to suggest some conditions to the panel. If the panel is of the mind to support the application, we would like the minimum side setback of the southern side setback to be 1 metre from the side boundary as per the geotech report. This is pre-excavation support in the form of a pile wall. The reason for that is to achieve compliance with the geotech report on page 13, also to ensure viable deep soil planting area. It's very, very important that condition 21 be amended. It includes a provision to retain tree 14. This tree also needs to be protected. So the condition should say retain and protect. There should be reference to 10.10, 10.5, 10.6, as well as 10.9. The reason for that is tree 14 is at least 70% on number 10A Cross Street. It lacks the high level of protection that benefits other trees on site, such as the more onerous tree protection measures associated with tree 18. The third condition that we'd like to propose is that no demolition of existing side boundary fencing be permitted, and any new fencing should be located on the site itself, non-climbable on both sides, and not impact on existing fencing at 10A Cross Street, which with all costs to be borne by the applicant. Obviously, the reason there is to ensure the integrity of new fencing that's there and to ensure compliance with the Swimming Pools Act. It's very, very important that the pool be reduced in length by 1.1 metre at the western end. The proposal is for a modification. There's no clouding of the pool at the western end, and we recommend that no works occur between the interface of the pool and the dwelling, and that should be conditioned up. And the reason for that is that those works were not disclosed, and the numbers are very, very clear in terms of that 1.1 metre length of the pool not being disclosed at the end of the western end there. That needs to be addressed by the panel. The other condition that we'd like to put forward is that the northern and eastern coping around the pool should be made non-trafficable to ensure that a person or any persons are not able to stand on the coping adjacent to the boundary of 10A Cross Street, and the reason for that is for improved privacy and to prevent excessive overlooking of surrounding development. Now, I mentioned just earlier that, and I won't hold you up because I understand that you wish to deliberate on issues, but if there's any, sure, I'll just wrap up by saying, sure. So if there's any doubt in relation to the length of the pool issue, the 19.35 metre length of the pool plus 2.25 metres gives you 21.6 metres. Yet 21.6 minus 4 is 17.6 metres. 17.6 minus 16.5, as per the condition, is 1.1 metres. If there's any doubt in relation to that, those numbers don't lie. So I'd just like to thank the panel for their time this morning.
Any questions?
Just one question. So I didn't quite get. You might have said it, but I just didn't get it. You're suggesting that the pool decrease in length at the western end by, I think, 1.1 or 1.5. Is that correct?
Well, what we're saying is that we wish to have condition 1A upheld. In other words, the maximum length of the pool should be 16.5 metres and set back 4 metres from Ashley Street. However, I pointed out very clearly that there is a 1.1 metre discrepancy in terms of the length of the pool. What we're simply asking for is respectfully for the panel to address that. We do not think that this ambiguity should go unnoticed. The pool should at least be reduced by 1.1 metres at the western end because that type of interface requires a lot more consideration of how it links with the dwelling. There's obviously decks involved, and put simply, it hasn't been disclosed to the council staff or to the panel. So when doing an assessment of this application, those types of things come up, as do, for example, when you look at the street elevation, the pool is simply not shown. Yet if you look at the section, it's quite evident that the pool sits above the parapet of the garage. These are streetscape issues, and also these are related to the original reason for the grant of consent, which comes under section 4.553.
So if I could just ask my question again, if the application was approved as it is, or put forth as it is, are you suggesting that a metre or 1.5 metres comes off the western end, or are you suggesting move the pool?
What we are saying is that, yes, 1.1 metres should not be approved, that the pool should not be lengthened by one.
If that's the case, why is that? Is it a structural issue?
Well, there's the potential for acoustic issues, and also because of the interface between the dwelling, you're also going to find that there'll be structural modifications to the dwelling in terms of decking and how that relationship is treated in relation to the pool and the decking at that point. We have no detail of that. Council has no detail of that. I don't think the panel is at liberty to approve the current application as it is.
Ms. Neal or Mr. O'Reilly, do you have any thing you wish to add?
Just a couple of things. Thanks so much for visiting site this morning. We're really grateful for that. Just on the privacy, with the extension of the pool at the eastern end, while the coping is reduced by 200 mil, when you stand in the pool, the bottom of the pool is still at the same level. So it doesn't really impact greatly our privacy concerns. And I guess the other thing in relation to that, there's proposed a 1.8 metre fence on the boundary, yet there's no RLs of the boundary. So it's a bit ambiguous to understand, you know, where that 1.8 metre fence will end up, given the lack of ground RLs for that. So yeah, I guess it's concerning from a privacy perspective there. Yeah, I reiterate John's point in relation to the tree. We're concerned that it's not being protected and only retained. We want to ensure that it is also protected, given most of that tree lies on our property. And then I think just on the western end of the pool, what's a bit misleading or difficult for us to understand there is the current RLs are around 2 metres higher than the pool coping proposed RL. So it's difficult for us to see how the excavation between the pool and our boundary might end up being, given we do want to ensure deep soil there for planting to ensure our privacy. Currently, you will have noticed that there is a lot of planting there for privacy, and obviously all that will go, and we just want to ensure that our privacy is retained at that point. And the deck, yeah, there's no information on how that will be re-supported or reconstructed. The pool goes under the deck, and that's not really apparent on the drawing. So yeah, just once again, understanding what's going on, that's in very close proximity to our dwelling and our open private spaces. Thanks so much. And yeah, just concluding that whilst we weren't happy, we would much prefer the conditions proposed from the previous panel, where the setback and length of the pool were constrained. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. O'Reilly, did you have anything to add?
No, I think that's all been adequately dealt with. And again, to Tali's point, thank you for dropping over this morning and taking a look at the site. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I have Carol Mara representing the applicant here. Mara, are you there online?
Yes, I'm here online. Can you hear me?
If you could, if anything you wish to present, or particularly if you could respond to the matters raised on behalf of the neighbour.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. I'm the architect for this application, and thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the applicant. I'd just like to note that the what's under consideration today is just a modification to condition 1A, which was imposed to the approved development application, which required a 4-meter setback from Ashley Street. And we have proposed instead a different way of achieving the intent of condition 1A with a 2.25-meter setback, as well as the reduction in the pool coping level. Now, I would like to note that the reduction in the pool coping level is 350 millimeters, not 200, as indicated by the objector. It is 350 from what was the original pool level in the approved development application. And that was done in relation to the objections that were raised with regards to the visual impact of the pool from Ashley Street and respecting the topography of the site, which were the reasons for condition 1A. So we've worked to calibrate that very carefully by reducing both the coping level and the depth of the pool. So the depth of the pool has been reduced. I will note that the pool hasn't entirely moved down, so there's no additional excavation works, which also minimizes the impact to the neighboring property. We have ensured the boundary fence along the north is 1.8 meters high, and all of those RLs are actually shown on development application drawing DA100. There's a clear overlaid elevation section on that drawing that shows the fence line in yellow and red, depending on the material, as well as the pool in green, which is behind the fence. And you can see that the entirety of the pool sits below the fence line, and there are RLs indicated both at ground level and top of fence and top of pool to demonstrate those relative relationships. So the concerns that have been raised in relation to RLs and privacy, I believe, are without merit, and we have dealt with them and demonstrated that through our drawings. In addition, I would like to just make a couple of comments regarding, for example, the western end of the pool. Our drawings show a 2.25 meter setback to Ashley Street and a pool length of 19.35 meters. All of those are correct in their numbering. The original pool length was 19.35 meters. That was in the original development application. That has not changed. What has changed is the setback. The original setback that we requested was 1.5 meters. The panel imposed a 4-meter setback, and we're now requesting a 2.25 meter setback plus other modifications to meet the intent of condition 1A. So those levels are correct. There's no discrepancy in relation to the location of the pool. I would also like to note there are no decks at the pool level. There are no existing decks. So when the objector references existing decks, they are speaking about a deck that is an entire floor above, and it has no relationship to the pool. Any structural works, of course, will be necessary, and there will be interface with existing conditions. That is normal for an alterations and additions application. And those considerations will be dealt with at the time that we prepare construction certificate documentation. And there are already conditions in the development application that relate to structural interfaces and what information we have to provide at CC stage to indicate how that has been resolved. So there's nothing new there. And again, that objection is without merit because it has already been conditioned and it has already been dealt with. So these are, and just in the relation to the coping being non-trafficable, coping is non-trafficable. People do not normally walk on coping, but it's just seems to me quite an irrelevant condition to impose. a coping is not a trafficable surface and that it's not where people would normally be walking. They would be entering and exiting the pool through a specific zone as indicated on the drawings. We do not have an objection to a condition which says new fencing has to be built entirely on the 12 Ashley Street property, that it just clarifies where the fencing goes and who pays for it, and that's not a problem at all. I will also note that council's recommendation is to approve this modification as it is in front of you, and that council itself has recommended a condition for the fence levels. I would like to know we do not have any objection to that condition being imposed either. In relation to the tree that has been brought up, I would just like to explain to the panel, in case you are not aware, that the objectors themselves had made an application to council for removal of the same tree during construction of their swimming pool, which took place about 2 or so years ago. There are very clear conditions already in the development application regarding the protection of that tree, as well as in our own arborist report, what must be done and how it must be done. And again, we have not objected to those conditions, and we would request that those conditions are sufficient for the works being undertaken. I would like to just give the panel an opportunity to ask me any further questions if you like, but I believe that I have addressed the items that have been raised by the objectors.
Thanks, Ms. Miller. Any questions, Ms. Miller? No, thank you. We have no questions, so thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, we move now to item 14 Ashley Street, Tamarima. DA 281 2024, the addition of a waste storage area, relocation of windows, changes to the roof terrace and various other amendments. I have no one registered speaking against this item. I have Jack Dowes, the architect, who's registered. Mr. Dowes, are you there and do you wish to speak? Mr. Dowes? It doesn't appear that Mr. Dowes is online, so we'll move on to item 5. DA 44 2022D, in relation to 5 Pacific Avenue, Tamarima. Modification including increase in the height by 250 millimetres, provision of services, apartment reconfiguration, window changes, adjustment of building levels and other minor design refinement. I have 2 objectors registered to speak on this item. The first is Sophie Baldwin. Ms. Baldwin, are you there? And if you could.
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, and you have 3 minutes to address the panel.
Thank you so much. So my name is Sophie Baldwin. I'm an adjoining neighbour to the development at Pacific Avenue. My address is 12 Silver Street. I'm clearly not an architect, but I have concerns around the overdevelopment and continual changes to this site that upon original DA approval was already generous in terms of the FSR and the size of the site that is there. It's in a residential area. The building is already 1 floor over, and the continual applications to make the height higher is almost grotesque in terms of how big this building is, and appears to be a disregard for the planning controls, what was agreed to up front, and almost a calculated effort to maximise the views and capitalise on the views for the potential new residents in what is an exceptionally commercially oriented development, and believe that if this is approved by council, it's a blatant disregard for a fair and reasonable development for the people who live amongst that in a residential family home. The inability of the architect to account for the services and now is requiring an additional 250 mil and not taking into account the building standards. They should be challenged with creating the building with inside the footprint that was initially developed and nothing larger. From a personal point of view, my house looks onto this development. I can lie in bed and see people in when the building was, it's got privacy screening now, but I am very, very impacted. It's in my lounge room, it's in my dining room, it's on my balcony, it's in my bedroom, my main core living areas. And the fact that this building just keeps getting bigger, we're on revision G, and I think that council need to hold a standard here that what council approved initially was very, very generous, and need to challenge the architects to stay within that original footprint. I think that's sort of it in a nutshell of what I want to say. And I think we need to stop these excessive changes that are, one from the street, very, very noticeable, and they keep getting bigger, and also from my house and the people on the eastern side. I'm just going to do a quick check to make sure I've covered. So loss of privacy, FSR, overshadowing, the things that come with it. But also, I think that we need to really look at developers' benefit here. That top floor recently sold for 20 million. It was all over social media. It's to the detriment of the neighbouring properties. If they get the services approved to run through and the building goes higher, those people have better views. And I think this is a deliberate strategy to be commercially oriented. And I think as a neighbourhood, I would like to see it not go any higher than what has already approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ball. Any questions?
No question.
Thank you. The next registered speakers are Kim and Tony Kench.
Hi, I'm here. Can you hear me, the panel, please?
Kim, thank you.
Excellent.
You have 3 minutes.
Great. So my husband, Tony, and I live at 8 Silver Street, Tamarama, and we would like to express our disappointment that having successfully negotiated the best outcomes for all parties when the original DA 44 2022 was approved, and it appears the applicant is seeking to move the envelope further in their direction without any regard to compromise. The original approved application saw a compromise from all parties with the outcome. There was the sharing of view loss, the depth of excavation required, and level of overdevelopment on this site. The approved DA resulted in approved premium level development where the future occupants would enjoy wonderful world-class amenities and design. This has been confirmed by the fact that the apartments have already been pre-sold, with the top floor apartment being sold for a large sum of money. And this was used by the design that was approved in that DA. We made further observations in the letter that hopefully the panel would have received, and we asked the panel to review that full letter with regards to failure by the developers and the architects to properly coordinate sprinkler design at DA stage. And our belief that there's been extensive excavations currently underway, which is the biggest environmental impact on this site. And it would be a shame if this excavation goes to practical waste, as there is currently a lot of ceiling height in the basement that could potentially be used to achieve the sprinklers and services required. We feel it would be very unfair that our views are reduced because of a planning error by the developers and their architects, which has resulted in their need to submit a further DA, increasing the building height and envelope. Our concern is the height increase over the lift well in particular. Although on paper, in the plans it would appear inconsequential, the negative effect and view loss to our property is substantial. Due to the approved plan's lift well height, we have currently a 1 metre view loss due to the increased size over the original demolished building height. If today's plans were approved, this would increase to a 2 metre wide view loss, and being positioned at the northeastern location due to the topography, the lift is currently located at the highest point of the land. Please keep in mind as well that the height of the approved property is significantly over 16 metres, or way above the 9.5 metres. And the view loss to our primary entertaining area that has large windows facing over this development. If the panel could please look at the plans on page 17, you will see how we are affected. Unfortunately, we are unable to see through the lift well, so it might as well be a solid construction, as any increase in the height blocks the entire view at that subsection. It should be noted as well that the reason the original plans were approved at this height is that would be in line with the existing block of flats next door at 3 to 4 Pacific Avenue. This adjustment, if approved, would be above that line. We are asking respectfully that the lift well be left at the height of the current plans, as it does make a significant difference to our property and takes into account view sharing. We think this is a very reasonable and modest request if that could be achieved from the panel and from the architects. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Other questions? Thank you very much. I have registered on behalf of the applicant, Mark Shapiro and Vaughan Blank. Would one of you introduce yourselves, and if you could particularly address the matters raised by the objectors?
Yes, thank you, panel. I'm Mark Shapiro, I'm the architect, and I thank the panel for your time and the objectors, and also the assessing officer, Carly, for her hard work. So, as per the report, the amendments relate mostly to technical engineering issues raised during the detailed design stage for CC in order to comply with the minimum 2,700 ceiling heights required both by the ADG and for acceptable amenity. We're not going for anything higher than 2,700 millimeters. It's purely to make it work technically. Many of these onerous requirements have come to light since the original DA application. So it's not common practice or economically practical to obtain full structural engineering, civil service design during DA stage. And the rule of thumb of 3,100 millimeter floor to floor was considered by the construction industry as standard and reasonable at the time in 2021 when the first application was lodged. So the main factors that have required an increase in the floor-to-floor height include more stringently applied set-down requirements by the building commissioner of 100 millimeter waterproofing termination heights, minimum 200 millimeter concrete slabs at the lowest point in the slab, whereas previously thinner slabs for balconies and wet areas were allowed via performance solutions. Inherent falls for waterproofing in the concrete slab rather than a screed on top of the slab. Structural engineering advice requiring 330 millimeter thick slabs, sprinkler depths, and coordination of all of this advice to make the 2,700 millimeter ceiling heights work. So this has resulted in 600 millimeters overall additional that's required, or about 120 millimeters on each residential floor. So 350 millimeters of that has been captured in lowering the ground floor as much as we can and reducing that basement floor to floor height, which has left us with about 3.35 floor to floor in the basement. So once you account for 500 millimeters plus of structural beams and about a 600 millimeter zone for all of the services, mechanical ducting, sprinklers, electrical, and we're casting in a lot of the hydraulic pipes, but with all of that, we require every millimeter of that to make it work. So we simply can't lower the ground floor anymore and comply with our vehicle headrooms. So the remaining 250 millimeters of that has been added to the height of the building, noting that is limited to the rear section of the building because we've rationalized the planter heights for the front section, so there's no discernible change to the streetscape. So it's limited to that rear part, as I mentioned. So it's got nothing to do with commercial gain. It's got nothing to do with improving the views, because in fact, some of the floor levels are actually lower because of the lowered ground floor height. It's entirely a technical matter, just to make it work. So in addition, the sprinkler storage tank is a result of the on-site pressure and flow tests, which required increased pressure to the sprinklers. There's not enough mains pressure. And the OSD increase, which resulted a bit of reshuffling in the basement, was because of the council conditions of consent, so responding to those new calculations. So as highlighted in the assessment report, the development is still significantly lower and represents amenity improvements, both in terms of solar access to the adjoining properties and view sharing from Silver Street behind, than the existing building, which has a pitch roof of about 1.4 meters higher than this proposal. We concur with the council report that the modest amendments are entirely reasonable, and being that they are essential for the realisation of the development, they'll represent a significant improvement to the streetscape and the amenity of the adjoining properties in comparison to the existing taller and unsightly building, which is not fit for purpose. So I don't know if I should respond to some of the issues raised by the objectors, but I think I've covered most of them. I just wanted to, some of the points raised in the objections that the ceiling heights are 3.1 meters, so that's not correct. The ceiling heights being achieved are 2.7 exactly with all these changes. The basement, as I've mentioned, we've lowered it as much as we can to still achieve the 2200 millimeter minimum, standard requirement for vehicle headroom. In terms of the view loss, in terms of the lift shaft, so the location of shifting it, that was actually approved in a previous application, which was mostly internal changes, which has resulted in shifting the lift shaft. So all we're doing in this application is raising it by that 250 millimeters with the rest of the, with that upper level, and it really is the lowest that we can get it in terms of the commercially available lifts. It's based on the Schindler lift, which has already been designed, and it's our opinion, as concurred by council, that it's still an improvement in the view compared to the existing building, and I think that's quite clear in those view loss diagrams. But I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes.
I've just got one question for you. So
yeah,
it seems that you want to raise it 250 mil.
Yeah.
Why not? It's been suggested. Why not drop it that amount? And it seems there's a pinch point on section 1.
Yeah.
All right. So
yeah,
and that impacts on that living room there. Why not take it? I'm just interested to hear what your answer is, by the way. Why not
so
out of that living room so that you can get that height in? Is that the pinch point? Is that the critical point?
The pinch point is that is a pinch point. The other pinch point is extending that ramp further would just make the, with the location of the lift and the stair and the way and extending that ramp by lowering the basement any further would just not work in terms of the parking compliance as well. So there was a number of pinch points. We really could, it really was the limit in terms of that 350 millimeters that we lowered the ground floor really was the limit, and we did explore all other options.
Sorry, if you need to go lower, you'd need it to be longer. So could the apartment get shorter at its southern end to get your head height there?
It was more about the basement. Well, I mean, we don't believe that's, firstly, changing that apartment layout, and we thought would be a detrimental impact on the building, but also it would also mean changing the parking layout by extending that ramp. And as I'm sure you can see in that basement layout, that would mean the loss of a parking at least, and it just wouldn't work.
Sure, understand. Okay.
Can I ask a question around? Thank you, Mark, for that.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Miss.
Oh, sorry.
Well, we're not having a debate. You did have your opportunity to speak, and the.
Oh, sorry. I thought when you said questions, I could ask one question. So
we can't just open this up to debate. I'm sorry. We have heard. We have read all the submissions, so we are aware of those things. But we just have an order that I need to stick to on this one. So thank you. Any other questions? Thank you very much. That's all we have on that item. Thank you to those speakers.
Thank you.
Move to item 6, DA 132 of 2023E, Unit 10, 232 to 234 Campbell Parade, Bondi Beach. I have no one registered to speak for or against this application. So we'll move to item 7, DA 460 stroke 2024, 2 to 4 Sandridge Street, Bondi Beach, Bondi, sorry. Alterations and additions to dwelling, including demolition and third floor addition. I have no one registered to speak against this item. I have, on behalf of the applicant, Alex Smith and Ben Henderson, registered to speak. Would one of you wish to present to the panel, or you're just here to answer questions, whichever you wish?
I might speak first, if that's okay, Alex.
If you could just announce yourself.
Yeah, Ben Henderson here. Thank you, panel, for the time. I just really wanted to give a little bit of context in relation to our application. I've been a resident in the immediate area for the past 20 years, 11 years at this property on Sandridge Street, and a further 9 years, 100 metres around the corner on Wilga Street. My wife and I have got 3 children, 2 teenage boys and a 7-year-old girl. Our home has a fairly small footprint, and there's only 3 bedrooms, or one's a converted study actually, that off the main bedroom. And we're really just looking for some more room for the family, hence the application that we submitted to remove the existing pitched roof and replace it with 2 bedrooms and a bathroom. We consulted with our immediate neighbours, and it's worth noting we got no objections from these immediate neighbours. What we didn't anticipate is the 2 objections that we did receive from over 150 metres away and probably about 30 metres higher up than our property up on Dudley Street. However, hopefully Alex has got a photo montage that he might be able to present that shows that the view loss is negligible. Appreciate the opportunity to say a few words. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. I sent in a submission yesterday.
Just announce yourself, Mr. Smith.
Sorry, Alex Smith, CSA Architects, on behalf of the applicant and owner, Ben. Yes, I sent in a submission yesterday with some photo montages. I'm unsure whether you have seen that or not.
We saw a late submission, yes.
You did. Okay, good. And the other thing I wanted to say is that our town planner would have addressed the panel, but his wife has to undergo emergency surgery, so he couldn't make it. We'd ask you to reconsider the planner's recommendation for refusal and argue that the DA merits for the reasons demonstrated below, and we don't feel that it's been clarified in the planning report. The change is to replace the pitched roof with a skillion roof with a marginal increase in height of 900 millimetres. And we do not think that the planner has conveyed the impacts of this thoroughly. The view loss montages that you would have, show virtually no change to the view. There is, in fact, where the roof pitch comes down to the eaves currently, there's an improvement there, and there is a small reduction at the top of the skillion. So in all, there's probably no net reduction in view loss. And that's demonstrated from the montages that were sent in. Other things that was in the report, with the exceedance of roof height, we've put in a request for variation on that. Not on the issue of non-compliance with wall height and setback controls. The report says the existing second floor is less than the 1.5 setback. However, we're not altering that floor at all, and the new work is compliant, and it's actually over 1.5 metre setback. The other image in the planning report appears to be a zoomed in image from one of the Dudley Street properties. And, we say that that's misleading. And when you look at the montages that I sent in yesterday, you can see that there is really, virtually none or no view loss changes, and noting that, these properties are over 150 metres away, 22 or more metres higher. And, we don't feel that assessment has, we don't agree with the assessment. With the solar access of the neighbours next door that are also in the submission I sent, a very open plan. Their footprint, or their living areas extend beyond our footprint. So the impact, the solar impact, we say, is also negligible, given they have an open plan with windows that go past our building. The other issue in the report about incompatibility with streetscape, we disagree with. We've sent in a table that shows 70% of the buildings along Sandridge Street and Wilga Street, which is behind the site, range from 3 to 9 stories. And we say that what we're proposing complements the streetscape heights. And we just don't see how it can be said that it's incompatible. That pretty much covers the issues that we wanted to raise, and we ask that if you agree that the assessment report hasn't investigated these issues thoroughly enough, we ask that you overturn the recommendation and recommend approve and approve it, or at least, in the least, defer it to investigate it further. And I'll take any questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Further questions?
No question.
Thank you very much for your presentations.
Thank you.
So move on to item 8, DA 590 of 2024, relation to 9/45 Ramsgate Avenue, Bondi Beach. Alterations and additions to Unit 9 within a residential flat building. I have no one registered to speak against the item. I have a representative on behalf of the applicant, Bridget Allen. Ms. Allen, do you wish to present to the panel?
Yes, thank you. I'm representing the owner. So the building was completed 2 years ago, and we've received feedback each time that Unit 9, whilst we've been renting it, that the master bedroom is too small and there isn't sufficient wardrobe space, and we want to improve that amenity. We've proposed a small infill, approximately 7 square metres within the balcony of the bedroom itself, noting the infill is within the existing form of the building and therefore doesn't create overshadowing or view impacts to neighbours. It does, however, create more privacy to the bedroom itself. We also note that the apartment has a large balcony at the rear of the living room, which won't be touched by this proposal. We have no issues with the proposed conditions of consent and note it's been recommended for approval.
That's all you have?
That's all, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions?
No question.
No. Thank you. Okay, so we'll move on to the final item, item 9, DA 125 of 2018D, in relation to 17 Wilga Street, Bondi. Modification for widening of approved balconies. I have no one registered to speak against the item. I have Jenny Askin registered on behalf of the applicant. Ms. Askin, do you wish to present to the panel?
Yes, thank you, Chair and panel. I'll be very brief, given that there's no submissions in relation to the DA. I just want to confirm that the application that's before you has been amended in line with Council's feedback and therefore is recommended for approval. I've reviewed the report and raised no concerns with any of the assessment or the conditions as proposed to be modified. I think the report has adequately addressed what needs to be addressed in terms of the clause 4.6, which relates to the upper level balconies, and has demonstrated that amenity, environmental amenity will be preserved and therefore is consistent with, passes those tests in terms of clause 4.6. So I'm happy to answer any questions the panel have, but as I said, I have no issue with the contents of the report.
Thank you, Ms. Hanson. Any questions?
No question.
No, thank you. Thank you,
Okay,
Ms.
thank
Gray.
you.
Okay, I will just go back to item 4, just to see if Mr. Dowse has come back online. No, okay, no, that's he is not present. So on that basis, we've heard from all presenters on each of the items, and I will now close the presentation, public hearing part of the meeting, and the panel will go into closed session to deliberate on all the items, and the panel's decisions will be on the council website within a few days. Thank you to all those involved in presenting to the panel today.